You're watching UATV News. My name is Inna Kosinska. Good evening. About 100 tanks, Grad, multi-rocket launchers and howitzers were spotted along the contact line by OSCE observers. All tanks were placed by illegal armed groups near settlements in certain areas of the Luhansk and Donetsk regions uncontrolled by Ukraine. 2 violations of the ceasefire regime were recorded by the headquarters of the Joint Forces operation over the past day. Illegal armed groups fired at our positions near Katerynivka and Krymska villages in the Luhansk region. There are no casualties among the Ukrainian military. Due to violations of the ceasefire regime in Donbas, Ukraine is convening an urgent meeting of the Trilateral Contact Group to remind on December 22nd its participants agreed to resume silence on the contact line. Deputy Prime Minister, Minister for Reintegration of the temporarily occupied territories, Vereshchuk, met with the families of Crimean political prisoners illegally persecuted by the occupation authorities of the peninsula. She noted that people fighting for the rights and freedoms of the indigenous population of Crimea teach a huge lesson in fortitude and true values. 86 Crimean Tatars are now illegally held in custody in the occupied Crimea and Russia. Putin's methods destroy the lives of children, parents, the entire families. It's horrible. However, when I saw the eyes of our political prisoners' relatives, I felt such firmness and invincibility in them that it was Orwell Hellman. They don't ask for anything. They just want the authorities and Ukrainians not to forget about the prisoners and their families. This heart-to-heart connection is the main thing that keeps our people on their way home. The Cabinet of Ministers approved a plan of civil protection measures for the next year. The corresponding order appeared on the government website. Thus, the central and local authorities should develop the action plan and organize a meeting of the public officials, and also inform the government about the results and determine the main tasks in this area, while the State Emergency Service was instructed to monitor the implementation of this plan. Three people died during an explosion in the medical unit in the western Ukrainian Kosiv city. Kosiv Central Regional Hospital in the Ivano-Frankivsk region caught on fire yesterday evening. Ignition started after the explosion on the first floor of a 4-storied structure. Local staff took over the early rescue, evacuating 12 patients. Rescuers saved 3 more lives. Earlier services reported 4 victims, while later became known that of the patients died over the COVID-19 infection. The blaze lasted for half an hour. The investigation continues. According to the preliminary information, 1 person died to the COVID-19. 3 victims died in a fire. Other 3 victims were transported to the Ivano-Frankivsk Regional Clinical Hospital. They are provided with a full assistance. All emergency services work in an enhanced mode. The number of cases of COVID-19 is growing again in Ukraine. The health ministry reports almost 5,500 new cases overnight. 307 people died. Most of the infected were recorded in Kyiv city, as well as in Odessa and Donetsk regions. 5 new cases of infection with the Omicron coronavirus strain were recorded in Ukraine. The first incidence was confirmed yet on December 18. Thus, 6 cases are identified, 4 in Kyiv city and the region, and 2 in Lviv and Dnipro cities. 3 sick persons returned from Germany, Poland and the United Arab Emirates. The first patient had mild symptoms and has already received a negative test result. To minimize the risk of infection with the new strain, the Ministry of Health advises to refrain from traveling to countries where Omicron is widespread. Ukrainian school kids will get capability passports. This will help them to choose the right profession and show their skills to future employers. For this, the Ministry of Education launched the all-Ukrainian project of vocational guidance called Choose the Profession of Your Dreams. My colleagues know the details.
One has a diploma in one specialty but works in a completely different field. More than half of Ukrainians work this way. Experts say the problem is that teenagers often choose the direction of education on the advice of parents and friends, rely on the prestige of the profession and not on their own abilities and desires.
There is a need of a labor market, and there is a problem that school graduates of higher education institutions eventually understand that they have chosen the wrong profession, not the education they like. Then they go to the state employment center, get another profession, retrain. During this time, they lose their own time and spend public funds.
To solve this problem, the Ministry of Education has launched the project Choose the Profession of Your Dream. Its basis is the online portal HRU Test in UA. There one can take a career guidance test that will determine the type of personality and intellect, as well as show which professions are suitable. The next step is the opportunity to learn more about those professions. One can also take part in virtual tours around Ukrainian enterprises.
All this is done so that young people stay in Ukraine, know about companies that work in their communities, and do not leave Ukraine for a better, imaginary life abroad. That is, there are very large enterprises in Ukraine that really need professional specialists, and our task is to guide young people, including for obtaining these professions.
The project has been running for just 4 months. During this time, about 10,000 people have been tested and consulted on the portal. In the future, participation in it will become a mandatory element of secondary education within the framework of the new Ukrainian school. And the data from the system will be entered into a special document, the passport of the student's skills. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Krychkova, UATV News.
Restrictions on driving without proper training came into force from today. Driver's licenses will be issued with new marks and codes. This was reported by the Men's Service Center of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. In particular, information about passing the exam in a car with an automatic transmission will be included in the license. Thus, if the driver learned to drive a car with an automatic gearbox, then he is prohibited from driving a passenger car with a mechanic one. However, the changes will not affect those drivers who have received a driver's license earlier. Emergency prevention works in the SaintNicolas Cathedral are planned to be completed by the end of January. After that, they plan to start the restoration of one of the most beautiful neo-Gothic buildings in the city. Prominent specialists will be involved in the process. Currently, the sod is being removed from the stonework. How the crown jewel of the city reclaims its view after fire, my colleagues found out. Emergency repair works are underway in the SaintNicolas Cathedral, the one which sustained severe damage over a fire in September. Steel structures inside the building are polycarbonate glass on the windows are already installed. Earlier, the debris were removed.
Currently, intricate stonework ornamenting the walls and ceiling is being cleaned of soot. The restoration of one of the most stunning designs by architect Vladislav Gorodetsky has been funded thanks to donations of entrepreneurs and ordinary citizens.
A total of 27 types of work are underway now, including unique ones. Thanks to German technology, a layer on the walls is covered with foam and later removed so that later they can be cleaned of soot. This is a completely unique project, and the German technology and the funds for which accident prevention works are now being carried out are happening without the involvement of public funds. In the future, budget funds will be used for the restoration of the facades.
The workers employ the safe waterless cleaning technology, Arte Mundit. It is a layer forming peeling paste for removing dust, soot and other types of dirt, and it doesn't contain solvents.
The technology is widely used across the European countries. For example, it was applied to clean St. Paul's Cathedral in London or Notre Dame de Chartres in France or the Royal Palace in Belgium.
In a month, communications are planned to be repaired in the building, protective nets will be installed, some of the critically damaged parts will be removed. To remind, fire broke out in the cathedral on the evening of the 3rd of September. The blaze harmed the interior ornament of the building and destroyed the organ, which was called one of the best concert instruments in Ukraine.
There is an instrument in the Cathedral of the St. Alexander. We have the organ in the Lutheran Church, but both of them need to be repaired. But those are not concert instruments, they are simpler. They have been adapted to hold divine masses. Therefore, if we talk about a concert organ, then, unfortunately, we do not have a single one in Kyiv now.
The new organ will appear in the cathedral next year after restoration. The Catholic community decided to fund a purchase. Here services will be held as well as concerts of organ music. And a new concert venue, that is the House of Organ and Chamber Music, will be built specifically as a new stage serving just for performers. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Svetlana Sich, UATV News.
Transportation of personnel, delivery of weapons or light military equipment and evacuation of the wounded. All this can be done by the first domestic military transport aircraft, AN-178-100R. It was presented at the Antonov state enterprise. The plane has flight tests ahead, but the company has already received a state order from the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine to produce 3 such aircraft. Our correspondent will tell you more. The Antonov enterprise has already received an order from the Ministry of Defense to produce 3 An-178-100R military transport aircraft. You can see 2 of them right behind me.
Another sample was created for flight certification tests, which are still going on. The Antonov 178-100R is a new generation aircraft. It was designed on the basis of modern world-class technologies. It is equipped with hundreds of electronic systems to optimize control. It also contains updated hydraulic, air conditioning and power supply systems.
It is symbolic that Ukraine demonstrates its defense capability thanks to synergy, thanks to joint efforts. This synergy is the key to our common victory. There won't be just 3 planes, but more. Therefore, now we are demonstrating that we are able to build planes. We can fly and we are able to defend ourselves.
The new aircraft is adapted for transporting personnel, delivering weapons, light military equipment, special equipment, and even for evacuating the wounded. The board can carry 78 injured, accompanied by doctors, and its total capacity is 100 people. More than 30 Ukrainian enterprises participated in the creation of the aircraft. Parts were delivered from Europe, USA, and Canada.
We now see the execution of the first part of this contract. Those will be the first planes that will take off in the near future and will serve our armed forces. Today we confirm not only the ability but also the ambitions for new contracts. Contracts for the armed forces of Ukraine, the Ministry of Infrastructure and the Ministry of Internal Affairs.
The development of the Ukrainian aviation and creation of the state air carrier Ukrainian National Airlines will provide the Antonov plant with orders for the following years. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Larissa Zubenko, UATV News.
That's all for this hour. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Twitter and Facebook pages. Thank you for staying with the UATV channel. See you tomorrow. Bye.